Everything in old Hollywood was not as golden as its name suggests. In particular, the marriages were not golden and romantic. They were toxic, full of betrayals and shame. Here, we are going to talk about 14 marriages that were totally disgraceful for old Hollywood. Rock Hudson and Phyllis Gates. Rock Hudson was the embodiment of the 1950s matinee idol. Towering, charismatic, and the face of box office hits like Magnificent Obsession and Pillow Talk. But behind his glittering public image lay a burden orchestrated by the studio system. He could not let slip that he was gay, in an era when this revelation could abruptly end a lucrative leading man career. His agent, Henry Wilson, was the architect behind many elaborate stories intended to silence rumors about Hudson's private life. The swift marriage to Phyllis Gates, Wilson's own secretary, was presented to the public as a whirlwind romance. Even close friends of Hudson were astounded by his sudden proposal in late 1955. The couple wed in a low-key ceremony in Santa Barbara, with Wilson tipping off the tabloids mere minutes afterward. This strategic leak was no accident. It served to prove that Hudson was off the dating market and quell the gossip swirling around him. Phyllis Gates, for her part, later claimed she married for love. In interviews, she painted Hudson as the perfect gentleman, someone who seemed poised to be a doting husband. Yet cracks in their union became apparent almost immediately. Many who knew them privately remarked that the atmosphere at home was often tense. Gates's memoir recounted an incident involving a stack of tight-fitting jeans she burned out of jealousy and suspicion. Such disputes showcased Hudson's sensitivity whenever his personal life was questioned. By 1958, the short-lived marriage had ended. Decades later, the release of private investigator Fred Otash's hidden files included a recorded conversation where Gates confronted Hudson about his relationships with men. Whether Gates genuinely knew the truth all along or was willfully blind remains a matter of debate. What can't be disputed is the broader context. The 1950s Hollywood machine demanded a perfect image, one that left no room for a leading man to be openly himself. Judy Garland and Vincente Minnelli. Judy Garland was beloved worldwide for her soaring vocals, charismatic performances, and iconic role in The Wizard of Oz. Vincente Minnelli was an innovative film director who shaped the golden age of MGM musicals, guiding classic titles like Meet Me in St. Louis, which also starred Garland. When they married in June 1945, the studio spun it as a dream union of two creative powerhouses. However, Hollywood's rumor mill had a different story to tell. Minnelli was known in certain circles to be romantically interested in men, making the marriage somewhat of a carefully managed arrangement. In the 1940s, MGM wielded tremendous influence over its stars. Everything from their diet to their romantic entanglements could be controlled by the powers that be. For Garland, the studio had dictated nearly every aspect of her life since childhood, enforcing strict schedules and diets that contributed to her lifelong struggles with mental health and substance misuse. On the surface, the Minnelli-Garland union seemed like a harmonious pairing of talent. Fans thrilled to see Minnelli direct Garland in luminous Technicolor musicals. Yet behind the scenes, their relationship was riddled with stress and misunderstandings. Garland craved emotional security and parental figures, and she frequently found herself overshadowed by personal insecurities. Minnelli, balancing his creative vision and the need to keep up appearances, was caught between professional ambitions and private truths. Their daughter, Liza Minnelli, was born in 1946, but the marriage was already under strain. Garland's struggles with anxiety and depression, magnified by an overbearing studio system, clashed with Minnelli's private life. By 1951, they had divorced. Even decades later, biographers would refer to their union as part romance, part production, meticulously curated to protect both parties' careers. It remains a reminder of how, in mid-century Hollywood, even two gifted individuals could find themselves tangled in a marriage shaped more by industry demands than genuine compatibility. Rudolph Valentino and Jean Acker. Few stars in the silent era commanded the worldwide adoration that Rudolph Valentino did. Dubbed the Latin lover, he electrified moviegoers with films like The Sheik and Blood and Sand. Yet the public was largely unaware of the personal melodrama surrounding his first marriage to actress Jean Acker, which took place in November 1919. Rumor has it that Acker was overwhelmed by regret almost from the moment she said "I do." After their wedding ceremony, she famously locked Valentino out of their hotel room, leaving him baffled in the hallway. The reasons for this abrupt cold shoulder would come to shape Hollywood gossip for decades. Some sources claim that Acker realized her heart belonged to another woman, specifically the cabaret performer Alla Nazimova, a daring and influential figure of the silent screen, known for her own boundary-pushing private life. Valentino and Acker's marriage was never consummated, and they soon separated, though they remained legally tied until finalizing their divorce in 1922. For Valentino, this was just the first of several public scandals about his personal life. In the years that followed, rumors about his sexuality, as well as the sincerity of his second marriage to costume designer Natasha Rambova, dominated fan magazines. Scholars have debated whether these relationships were personal or part of a grand strategy to cultivate Valentino's exotic image. The swirling gossip only intensified after Valentino's premature death at age 31. Mourners thronged to pay their respects, with fainting fans and candlelight vigils underscoring his status as a romantic idol. But the question hung in the air: were his marriages illusions created for the camera? Perhaps the turmoil surrounding Jean Acker was more indicative of the intense pressure to maintain an acceptable public facade. In the end, their ill-fated union endures as a testament to how swiftly romantic illusions could be shattered behind Hollywood's velvet curtain. Marilyn Monroe and Arthur Miller. Marilyn Monroe and Arthur Miller's marriage conjured an image of the ultimate beauty and the intellectual genius, a collision of Hollywood stardom and literary prestige. Fans were enthralled by this unexpected union when they wed in June 1956. Monroe yearned for serious roles that could challenge her beyond the blonde bombshell stereotype, and marrying a Pulitzer Prize-winning playwright seemed like a transformative step toward respectability. Miller, meanwhile, found himself catapulted to a new level of public fascination, suddenly in the glare of paparazzi. Yet the complexities began to mount almost immediately. Monroe struggled with crippling anxiety, which had worsened over the years, amid intense studio pressures. She turned to method acting and devoured great works of literature, hoping to prove her intellectual worth. Miller, initially enamored with her curiosity and raw vulnerability, began to see cracks in their relationship when Monroe's mental health issues repeatedly disrupted their life. His private journals revealed harsh criticisms, including references to feeling embarrassed by her inability to adapt to highbrow circles. Their differences widened during the filming of The Prince and The Showgirl, directed by and co-starring Laurence Olivier. Monroe's tension with Olivier mirrored her sense of isolation within Miller's social world. Personal revelations from her diaries show that she felt betrayed when she found journal entries where Miller questioned the marriage. Her sense of abandonment led her further into a spiral of barbiturates and emotional instability. After 4 tumultuous years, they divorced in January 1961. Monroe's heartbreak over the split, combined with her ongoing emotional and substance-related struggles, drove her deeper into despair. For Miller, the relationship ended as abruptly as it began. He married photographer Inga Morath only weeks after his divorce was final. Historians have since deliberated whether this marriage was ever rooted in genuine passion or if it was a strategic facade. Though once hailed as a fairy tale match, the glaring differences in temperament and ambition ultimately proved insurmountable, leaving both parties emotionally drained. Cary Grant and Barbara Hutton. In July 1942, Cary Grant married Barbara Hutton, an heiress to the Woolworth fortune, in an event that dazzled the gossip columns. Hutton had been through several rocky relationships, and her vast wealth drew suitors, sometimes with questionable motives. Grant, on the other hand, was recognized as a suave and sophisticated leading man, though rumors about his private life dogged him. Hollywood watchers wondered if this was a union of convenience or a tender partnership behind the scenes. Despite Hutton's reputation for lavish spending and repeated heartbreak, Grant reportedly never took money from her. Curiously, this act of chivalry spurred more talk. Some speculated that he sought this marriage to quell persistent rumors about his close living arrangements with actor Randolph Scott. Others insisted that Grant was genuinely in love, albeit overshadowed by the intense publicity that followed them wherever they went. Their life together was glamorous and sociable. They were photographed at premier events and welcomed in the wealthiest circles across Europe and the U.S. Yet, close friends suggested that behind closed doors, the marriage was more functional than fervently romantic. Hutton's emotional scars from previous relationships, along with her widely publicized mental health challenges, may have made a truly harmonious union difficult. The marriage lasted only 3 years, from 1942 to 1945. When they quietly parted ways, there were no dramatic public accusations or bitter custody battles, just a subdued ending that belied the extravagant coverage of their wedding. Hutton continued on her tumultuous journey, eventually marrying and divorcing multiple times, while Grant maintained his air of mystery and never ceased to fascinate Hollywood with his polished public persona. To this day, their brief union remains a topic of speculation. Was Cary Grant merely sheltering from rumors, and was Barbara Hutton yearning for stability she never fully found? While we may never know the complete truth, their story underlines how a marriage of dazzling surfaces can conceal a far more complicated reality underneath. Anthony Perkins and Barry Berenson. Anthony Perkins left an indelible mark on film history with his portrayal of Norman Bates in Alfred Hitchcock's Psycho, a role that cemented his image as the anxious, charismatic leading man. Yet, away from the set, Perkins navigated a personal life that reflected the clandestine realities faced by many gay men in 1950s and 1960s Hollywood. He had been linked romantically to actors like Tab Hunter, though these connections were kept strictly out of public view. When Perkins married model and photographer Barry Berenson in 1973, it stunned friends and colleagues who were aware of his prior relationships with men. Industry observers viewed it through the lens of a strategic move. Star images often needed heterosexual marriages to maintain mainstream appeal. Still, accounts from some who knew the couple well indicate a genuine bond, suggesting their connection went beyond mere performance. They welcomed 2 sons, Oz and Elvis, and Berenson remained a loyal partner, even as Perkins continued to quietly grapple with his identity. The darker side of Perkins' struggle is well documented. In an era rife with homophobia, he reportedly underwent aversion therapy in the hope of reorienting his desires. These treatments underlined the extraordinary pressure celebrities faced to fit a specific mold. Perkins's situation revealed an industry that demanded compliance, forcing even critically acclaimed actors to make agonizing personal compromises. Tragically, Perkins was diagnosed with AIDS in 1990, a fact he kept under wraps until his passing in 1992. Berenson herself later died in the 9/11 attacks in 2001, adding an additional layer of sorrow to an already heartbreaking story. Their marriage, viewed by some as a facade, by others as a complicated love story, continues to provoke discussion about the lengths a person might go to protect or reconcile their public and private lives. It remains a poignant chapter in Hollywood's ongoing narrative of image, secrecy, and survival. Dorothy Dandridge and Jack Dennison. Dorothy Dandridge rose to prominence when she became the first Black woman nominated for a Best Actress Oscar for her turn in Carmen Jones, 1954. She shattered cultural barriers in the segregated film industry, only to find her personal life overshadowed by instability and heartbreak. By the time she married nightclub owner Jack Dennison in 1959, her career had hit significant roadblocks. Many producers were reluctant to cast black actresses in leading roles, no matter how talented. Dandridge's union with Dennison was marked by ominous rumors from the beginning. Friends claimed that Dennison was more taken by the prospect of her bank account than by her radiant charm. As if that weren't troubling enough, whispers of emotional and physical abuse circulated. Coupled with Dennison's dubious business ventures, it became clear that Dandridge was walking into treacherous territory. One fateful investment saw Dandridge pour substantial funds into a restaurant project Dennison championed. The venture collapsed, leaving her nearly bankrupt and struggling with mounting debts. This financial strain only compounded other issues in their marriage. On a personal level, Dandridge was already battling self-doubt, typecasting, and limited opportunities in Hollywood, despite her undeniable star power. By 1962, Dandridge had filed for divorce, emerging from the ordeal nearly destitute. Her once brilliant career was in tatters, and few in the industry seemed willing to open doors for her. The weight of these struggles took a devastating toll. She turned to alcohol and prescription medications, grappling with depression and solitude. Her tragic death in 1965, officially attributed to a rare embolism, came at just 42 years old. While it's impossible to quantify exactly how much her toxic marriage contributed to her untimely end, many observers point to the emotional and financial collapse stemming from her relationship with Dennison as a significant factor. Dorothy Dandridge remains both a trailblazer and a cautionary tale of how a brilliant talent can be driven to ruin when exploited by those closest to her. Tallulah Bankhead and John Emery. Tallulah Bankhead was a defiant spirit in a Hollywood that prized conformity. Possessing a smoky voice, a razor-sharp wit, and a penchant for outrageous quips, she was as famous for her social life as for her scene-stealing performances on stage and screen. By the mid-1930s, her name was already synonymous with both scandal and unrivaled talent. When she married actor John Emery in 1937, it left more than a few friends scratching their heads. Bankhead had earned a reputation for flouting traditional boundaries, openly admitting attractions to both men and women. In a film industry governed by rigid morality clauses, many believed that the wedding was arranged, or at least encouraged, by publicists and studio executives uneasy about her unguarded commentary on same-sex relationships. After all, Bankhead's father had advised her to watch out for men and alcohol, but said nothing about women and cocaine, a line she repeated many times with comedic flair. Emery, a polished but somewhat less famous actor, seemed a peculiar match for Bankhead's flamboyant nature. Their marriage lasted until 1941, merely 4 years, by which time they had drifted into separate orbits. Bankhead, never one to mince words, rarely discussed the true reasons for her divorce. However, it was clear to those around her that she had zero interest in maintaining the guise of a proper Hollywood marriage. Post-divorce, she relished her liberated persona even more, resuming a lifestyle that brashly defied the social norms of the time. Whether the wedding was a Hollywood PR device or a fleeting moment of genuine affection is hard to pin down. Still, Bankhead's enduring legacy lies in her refusal to be silenced. She moved through Tinseltown on her own terms, unrepentant about who she was attracted to or how she chose to live. In doing so, she helped pave the way for those who would later challenge the same entrenched moral code. Peter Lawford and Patricia Kennedy. Peter Lawford was a polished British actor turned Hollywood mainstay, known as much for his membership in Frank Sinatra's Rat Pack as for his film appearances. But in 1954, he joined an even more illustrious inner circle when he wed Patricia "Pat" Kennedy, sister to then-Senator John F. Kennedy. This intersection of a rising political dynasty and Hollywood glamour was a match sure to pique the nation's interest. From the outside, the couple seemed to embody star quality meets political prestige. Lawford's refined accent and matinee idol looks complemented Patricia's poise, reflecting the sophisticated persona cherished by the Kennedy clan. Yet underneath this gloss, real challenges soon emerged. Lawford was known for his penchant for high living, womanizing, drinking, and drug use that often intersected with his Rat Pack circle. Patricia, brought up in a household that revered loyalty and prudence, became exasperated by her husband's behavior. The Kennedys were, by nature, a private family that tried to rein in controversies behind well-guarded doors. Having a son-in-law who was constantly in the tabloids wasn't ideal for a dynasty focused on politics. Nonetheless, the union persisted for over a decade, marked by social gatherings at Hyannisport and parties with Sinatra's crowd. But by 1966, Patricia filed for divorce, indicating that Lawford's lifestyle was no longer tolerable. The years following their split saw Lawford remain sporadically entangled in Kennedy lore. He was rumored to have played intermediary in delicate matters, such as alleged communications between Marilyn Monroe and the Kennedy brothers, though the exact truth remains elusive. What is certain is that the glamorous veneer of his marriage to Patricia masked a fragile foundation. For Patricia, divorce was more than a personal turning point. It was a break from a man who could no longer protect the refined image the Kennedys demanded. Their story stands as a reminder of how even perfect matches can unravel when overshadowed by addiction, secrecy, and misaligned expectations. Barbara Stanwyck and Robert Taylor. Barbara Stanwyck was among Hollywood's most formidable leading ladies, known for her piercing eyes and commanding presence in films like Double Indemnity and Stella Dallas. Meanwhile, Robert Taylor was branded as MGM's man with the perfect profile, a dashing star who played romantic heroes in sweeping dramas. In 1939, the studio system orchestrated what they hoped would be the ultimate glamour couple when Stanwyck and Taylor exchanged vows. Yet, whisperings circulated through the industry's smoky back corridors. Some claimed MGM needed to tamp down rumors that Taylor might be gay, while others remarked that Stanwyck's own sexuality was also subject to speculation. Whatever the truth, the pair dutifully posed for glossy photographs, attended premieres arm in arm, and gave carefully curated interviews that reinforced the idea of their domestic bliss. In an unusual turn, Stanwyck secured a portion of Taylor's earnings for the rest of his life, a fact that prompted speculation about what secrets lay behind this arrangement. While we may never have irrefutable proof that their marriage was purely a Hollywood-manufactured show, the overwhelming sense is that it was shaped and manipulated by the industry's unrelenting need for a bankable it couple. In the end, both Stanwyck and Taylor found their greatest successes on screen, where the illusions they portrayed were purely cinematic, and ironically, far more convincing. Gaynor and Adrian. Janet Gaynor was a trailblazer in the history of cinema, becoming the first-ever winner of the Academy Award for Best Actress, honored for her roles in Seventh Heaven, Sunrise, and Street Angel. In 1939, she said "I do" to Gilbert Adrian, known simply as Adrian, MGM's star costume designer, celebrated for his visionary work in The Wizard of Oz and countless other classics. At first glance, their union seemed like a union of Hollywood royalty. Yet rumors about both Gaynor and Adrian were whispered with increasing frequency around Tinseltown. It was commonly speculated that both were gay, making their marriage suspect in an era when studios systematically micromanaged their stars' personal and professional decisions. Marriage offered a protective barrier against intrusive questions and nosy tabloid columnists who thrived on hints of scandal. During their 2 decades together, Gaynor and Adrian made a lovely public couple, attending high-profile events, hosting dinner parties at their stylish home, and occasionally collaborating on artistic projects. They adopted a son, Robin, cementing the appearance of a conventional 1940s family. Nevertheless, many acquaintances recounted that the relationship functioned more as a trusted friendship than a romantic bond. Each valued the other's creative flair. Gaynor appreciated Adrian's brilliance, while Adrian admired Gaynor's warm personality and determined work ethic. Following Adrian's passing in 1959, Gaynor formed a close relationship with Broadway sensation Mary Martin. Although never publicly confirmed as romantic, their strong connection fueled additional conjecture about Gaynor's private life. Vincent Price and Mary Grant. Vincent Price was the silver screen's consummate master of horror, famous for his sonorous voice and compelling presence in cult classics like House of Wax and The Fly. Off-camera, he was a sophisticated connoisseur of art and cuisine, hosting dinners that rivaled scenes in his most dramatic roles. In 1949, he married Mary Grant, a respected costume designer, and together they projected an image of cultured elegance that the public devoured. Nevertheless, rumors about Price's sexuality hovered in hushed tones for much of his career. Some who moved in his social orbit discreetly disclosed that Price was bisexual, a fact seemingly corroborated years later by his daughter Victoria, who publicly spoke about her father's fluid identity. In the climate of mid-20th century Hollywood, however, revealing such realities could have curtailed a star's career, and possibly ended the terrifying yet enthralling roles that Price embodied so well. Mary Grant and Vincent Price stayed together for over 2 decades, raising a daughter and sharing a creative synergy. She complemented his refined tastes, helped host sumptuous gatherings, and served as a grounding force in his life. But as the 1970s approached, their relationship began to fray, culminating in a divorce in 1973. In Price's later years, he became a vocal advocate for LGBTQ+ issues and AIDS awareness. Although he never publicly confirmed the rumors about his own romantic history, his activism, however, led many to reflect on whether he had chosen to remain discreet for decades out of necessity. Vincent Price's legacy as a horror icon remains unassailable, but the intricacies of his personal life add yet another compelling layer to his legend. Kaye and Fine. Kaye delighted audiences worldwide as a versatile entertainer, singing, dancing, and clowning through musical comedies like White Christmas and The Court Jester. His comedic style radiated warmth, but behind the light-hearted persona were complexities that even close friends found perplexing. In 1940, he married Fine, a witty and formidable lyricist and composer who not only wrote his signature songs, but also managed critical aspects of his career. Their partnership was unique from the outset. Fine was integral to Kaye's professional accomplishments, crafting routines that showcased his comedic timing and vocal range. She kept a tight rein on his finances and overall trajectory, serving as the main decision-maker. Yet behind the comedic facade, rumors floated about Kaye's close friendships with men, notably an alleged intimate bond with Laurence Olivier. While neither Kaye nor Olivier publicly confirmed such whispers, the tabloids and Hollywood insiders maintained a steady hum of speculation. Despite these suspicions, Kaye and Fine remained married for over 5 decades. Observers noted that their relationship evolved into more of a managerial and familial arrangement, rather than a traditional romantic union. They lived together at times, but there were also extended periods in which they appeared to lead largely separate lives. Kaye, who died in 1987, left behind a legacy of comedic brilliance overshadowed somewhat by the myriad unanswered questions about his private world. Whether the marriage was built on love, necessity, or a fusion of both, it stands as a reminder of how fluid and deeply complex Hollywood unions could be, even when they were front and center in the public eye. Clark Gable and Kaye Williams. Clark Gable was known as the King of Hollywood, thanks to his powerful performances in films like Gone with the Wind and It Happened One Night. After losing his beloved wife, Carole Lombard, in a 1942 plane crash, Gable's personal life became something of a lonely journey, albeit one frequently adorned with glamorous dates and rumored studio entanglements. By 1955, when he decided to marry Kay Williams, an actress and former socialite, many saw the union as pragmatic rather than passionate. Williams had previously been married to wealthy businessman Adolph Spreckles, and her life had its share of drama before she ever linked with Gable. For Gable, now middle-aged, the marriage provided a semblance of stability without the fervent emotional upheavals of his earlier relationships. Studio executives, too, may have appreciated a calm, respectable household for Gable, especially given his iconic stature. Nonetheless, behind closed doors, the synergy between Gable and Williams was subject to speculation. Reports suggest they lived somewhat parallel lives. Gable found solace in hunting trips and simpler pleasures, while Williams occasionally ventured into more elite social gatherings. Publicly, they seemed content enough, but the spark that once defined Gable's famously passionate unions appeared to be missing. Tragedy struck again in 1960 when Gable died of a heart attack at just 59. Only 4 months later, Williams gave birth to their son, John Clark Gable, fueling even more inquiries. Was their marriage purely a convenience or a genuine attempt at building a family? While acquaintances offer differing accounts, the overall sense is that the relationship was cordial yet distant. In the broader tapestry of Tinseltown, Gable and Williams' marriage is frequently overshadowed by his legendary pairing with Carole Lombard. If you enjoyed uncovering the shadows behind the glamour, please like, comment, and subscribe for more stories about film legends and the unspoken truths that shape them. Until next time, may the reels keep spinning and the mysteries continue unfolding.